Hi YouTubers, welcome back to Vintage Fashion Hat Chat. I'm Norma Shepherd, Director of the Mobile Millinery Museum and the author of 5 books on vintage fashion, and I wish you all a Happy New Year. I'm so happy that we've come through the holidays and we have a whole new year to look forward to, perhaps an end to COVID. Let's hope. And also just think 365 more days to hunt for beautiful vintage fashion hats, and who knows what's out there in the wild. Also, designers are coming back to the millinery trade, and I'm just thinking ahead, 11, 12 weeks from now, spring designs will be out, and who knows what beautiful creations there will be for the taking, for the buying, for the collecting, and preserving. For today, I want to discuss some vintage furs, and I'm also going to talk about an exhibit we'll be mounting in June, we're preparing for, but I'll speak about that at the end of the video. So the first hat I want to show you is from the late 1960s. This is one of those pieces that environmental protesters were very upset about, rightly so. Patrons of La Scala, their beautiful fur pelt coats were pelted with paint as they entered and exited the opera, and that made headlines and certainly drew attention to the horrible practice of the slaughter of some of the great cats for use in fashion, and many of the species became endangered. Now this is a Margay fur. Look at the beautiful markings. You can see the guard hairs. It's just so soft, even through the nylon museum gloves. I can feel the softness of it. I mean, it is a beauty. This is a cocktail hat from the 1960s. The style is called eggshell, and I'm sure you can understand why. This is the center back where the label is. This is the way it is worn. It's asymmetric, and you can see how it would hug the crown of the head. Oh, so gorgeous. The label is from Quebec, exclusive to this millinery salon. Now, I have said before that a lot of the millinery salons in the 20th century, they had their own furriers because it's special skill that's required to make these fur hats. So that is one of the beautiful fur pieces in our collection. I want to show you another, and this is from the 30s, and it is mink, white mink. Look at that great pin that punctuates the front of this. There are many different shades of mink, of course. There's black and white, there's black, there's this lovely champagne color, several shades of red, several shades of brown, each with their own really interesting names. And of course, there are blonde mink. There's also a strain of blue. My grandfather was a mink rancher in Quebec, mid-20th century. And he also trapped wild mink down by the river behind his ranch. And he would breed them with the other species of mink that he had and sell the pelts at the big fur auctions in Montreal. Now the pin on here is interesting as well. For you jewelry collectors, I collect as well. You can see that the little pin has some faux pearls, some rhinestones. It's based on a nice square of bakelite, and look at this, it's just in the center of these little feet. Now, some people find that a little creepy, but I'm sure if you think back to the 30s and 40s and you think of those beautiful fur stoles that the women wore, you know that they used the heads, they used the feet, they used every piece of that pelt for fashion. So it's a nice little punctuation. I did show some mink with actually it was a mink pillbox, and the little feet formed a top knot in the center. I showed that on breakfast television, maybe even a couple decades ago now, and it was very shocking. People weren't even wearing hats back then, millinery had fallen so far out of fashion. But it was important to look at. It's part of history. So there is a very nice mink. Mink is known as the warmest fur there is. And mink are ranch, so there was never any danger of the species becoming extinct or endangered. Now, if you couldn't afford mink, sometimes you could purchase a less expensive stole that looked sort of like mink. I mean, it was fashioned in the same way. It was fur, but of course it was a lower quality. And they were called Skelinskis. And people thought, oh, I bought a Skelinsky. But that was really just a Russian squirrel. So that's kind of interesting. Alternatively, you could have a less expensive hat made with remnants of mink. Like in this little whimsy. These whimsies were quite popular in the 1960s. This could sit over upswept hair in a beehive, a bouffant, and it would be just enough to qualify you to attend church because you were expected to cover your head. So these were very popular. The bow on this is velvet. There's a little comb, of course, to secure it to your hair. And then in addition to chenille dots on the veiling, there's some little mink pom-poms. So you could say you had a mink hat, but there wasn't a whole lot of, not a whole lot of mink on it, in it, part of it. I want to show you this one. This is another fur. This is Astrican. Beautiful. I don't know. It's yellowed over the years. Would have started out quite white. It's a very old label inside. And the lining is quilted. So this would have been very, very warm. And the label, the label is fabric. And I suspect the owner of this hat may have put it through the wash a few times, or maybe it was in the snow. You cannot read it. So it has faded to that degree. But it's a really sweet little sort of wild looking Astrican fur hat. And then of course behind me on the mannequin head is the genuine Leopard. It's a pillbox. The lining is also quilted. This is from the 60s. This was donated to the museum by a woman who was gifted this by someone who traveled to Africa. And she was gifted it when it was new in the 60s. And she never had the heart to wear it, of course. But it is a beautiful, beautiful, classic pillbox. So I'll just say a word or two about what we're planning for June. We are planning on a retrospective called 70 Hats for 70 Years in honor of the Queen's 70th Jubilee celebration. And we will be showing hats from our collection which resemble in style many of the hats that Queen Elizabeth wore throughout the decades of her very long reign, her historic reign. And of course we know that styles that she wore would set trends for the general public. So of course many of these hats similar to the styles that she wore are still around. Hoping that nothing interferes with this, and it's kind of fun pairing the pictures that we see of her at different events over the years with pieces that we have that are similar in our collection. So I'll keep you more posted on that as we go along. And thank you for watching. If you're interested in vintage fashion, vintage hats, millinery, future vintage, let me know in the comments what your interests are and if you have any questions. And in the meantime, have a hatty day.